This week on Full Credit to the Noise, Joe Public fights for Neil Crompton, we dabble on the $2 stock market, and Jack Doohan is looking for a new gig. Welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. You can find this podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FCTTN Podcast. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook at @former_legend. You can find the bloke across from me on Twitter at AVL_motorsport. He's on Instagram at AVL.motorsport. He's the man who this week returned from a 3-month stint as an ICE agent in America. He is the first celebrity to be ejected from the jungle on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And tonight he's wearing an Australian Open ball kid uniform. Welcome to Speak Cafe's Andrew Van Leeuwen.
Hello, Former. I can assure you I would be useless on that I'm a Celebrity show because, particularly if it was anything to do with spiders. I just can't stand, yes, I would also be useless at that, but I just can't stand spiders. I just wouldn't be able to do 90% of the things on that jungle show, I reckon.
How many times can they just put elephant balls in front of someone and say, you got to eat them, before everyone goes, you know what, I think we've done this to death.
I've got to be honest, I don't actually watch it, so I'm not 100% sure, but I see the ads and I see hairy spiders and I go, nope.
Yeah, no, not for me. Mate, what have you been up to? Where you been? I haven't seen you. I haven't heard from you. I didn't know if you were alive. What happened?
No, I'm definitely alive. No, just having a bit of a break. Well, to be honest, it was a pretty busy off-season, to be honest, and even, it's the start of Feb and we've just started recording, but even January, the news cycle didn't really stop, as we'll kind of get into. So it was a busier than usual off-season, obviously like a late finish to the year as well. So it's been it's been a busy, it was a busy Christmas, but I got a bit of time down in the southwest, the WA, and hanging out a little bit. So, how was your Christmas?
Oh, it was good. I watched the Poms get flogged in the Ashes. I mean, that was terrible news, wasn't it? Yep. I didn't enjoy that at all. I mean, and I'll tell you what, don't the Poms know how to get over a loss? Get on the piss at Noosa and just really get on the bender and don't worry about it. Their media, they're very kind to them. They didn't persecute them hardly at all. I genuinely... listen to podcasts from England over the summer, just their media absolutely lashing them to an inch of their lives. What else?
It's just the modern times, but right, because imagine what some of those like old England touring squads would have been doing, whether they won or lost. Like they were just, both sides were just absolutely banging back the piss the entire time. That was the whole point of going on these international tours. So it's just a sign of modern times that they can't do anything without scrutiny. But also when you come out and say, you've got part of their camp say this is the worst Australian team in however many years and we're going to win this thing, and then you get absolutely flogged. Like it was delightful. Mind you, I don't know if you watched any of the T20 games in Pakistan over the last few days over the weekend, but I don't know how our T20 World Cup chances are looking, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's just hit and giggle. And to be honest with you, any team that Cameron Green's in, I'm struggling to follow at the moment too well. And last night he accused a bloke of chucking. I don't know whether about you, but if you're going to choose a bloke of chucking, maybe do it before you get out, because after it seems a little bit sort of a bit late to the party there, Cameron. Yep. What do you reckon about the tennis? Have you been watching the tennis? I've sort of dialed in right near the end, and it seemed to be not a bad watch. But
I didn't. My relationship with tennis is every time I actually sit down and watch it, I'm like, oh, that's right, this is like really fun to watch. But it doesn't grab my interest enough to do that enough. And even for the fight, I didn't watch much at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it probably from the quarterfinals onwards, and mate, is there an easier group of people to get a laugh out of than tennis fans? They are the greatest bunch of collective nerds in the world. Yep. Oh, there's a moth on the court. The player gave a ball kid their racket and said, you can play the next point. Oh, that's hilarious. Another player kicked the ball with keep it up with the tennis ball like a soccer ball. Wow, it's so great. I mean, they are the easiest pleased group of people I reckon I've ever seen. Yep, if you're a comedian, try and get a tennis crowd. That's all you need, and you'll look like Jerry Seinfeld, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. And the other probably big news to come out of the summer, and I know you're a bit of a push for this to happen, is for Western Australia is about to invade Greenland to complement Rottnest Island.
Yeah.
It's going to become part of the Western Australian government's land. Is that what you're all about as well?
I tell you one thing, like from where I'm sitting right in this exact moment, I'm probably about 20 kilometres away from Rottnest Island. And I reckon it would be cheaper for me to take a holiday to Greenland than it would be to go and stay at Rotto. Particularly this time of year, but pretty much any time of the year. Like it is just that half-hour ferry ride is expensive enough, and then it's a wildly expensive place to go. So bring it on. You can join the Cocos Islands and a few other. So Christmas Island. That's I think that's WA territory as well. So we can just keep racking them up.
And they've stopped you from taking your cricket bat over there to play Quokka cricket. Is that right?
Never do that. I think Quokka soccer is the more common common term, but of course we'd never do something like that. They are adorable little creatures.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's go to the shift cut because there's a fair bit of news blowing around.
4, 3, 2, 1.
And we'll start with, well, I don't know if it's the biggest story, but it's definitely the one that sort of got a bit of momentum in the last week or two, and that's Neil Crompton confirming that his exit from the commentary team of Supercars. He's been offered only a 2-round deal from all reports. James Warburton has given him and Mark Scaife the huge ass. And that's prompted fans to start a petition to save Neil. But actually, no one started a petition to save Scaife, I noticed, AVL, which is a little bit awkward. I know Chaz has signed the petition, as well as other social media accounts. There's one called Creel Nompton. There's one called Mr. N. Cromley. Neil's on Wheels 21. Crompo 2026. And Grant, get ready to beep your first beep for the year. The big have been rolled out as well.
One of the great Supercars commentary moments of all time. That really is something that still tickles me to this day every time it happens to flash up in some sort of social media feed. But obviously like huge changes in TV land. Stefan and I did a news pod on all of this late last week. Went into great detail about what we expect to see in terms of the TV product next year. So I won't labour on it too much because I'd be repeating myself, but that's worth a listen if you haven't heard it already. And Stefan wrote an excellent piece about it for Speed Cafe that was published on Monday, so check that out too. But yeah, I mean, we fully expect Neil and Mark to both be out of the commentary box, at least in a full-time capacity for this season. Those guys have been the voice of the sport for so long, so this is a seismic shake-up for the TV product. It's an interesting one. I mean, from my point of view, I do sympathise with the desire from Supercars for change, and part of me is excited to see how that plays out. At the same time, it's clearly playing out in a disappointing way in terms of recognising what both Neil and Mark, and I know Mark's a lot more polarising than Neil, but what they have contributed to that TV product over such a long time. You know, they did deserve, or do deserve, or however you want to put it, a proper farewell, whether that was last year or whether it was a more substantial phasing out throughout this year than what's been offered. So that's the disappointing part for me. Beyond that, there's a lot that we still don't know, which is wild given the fact that the season starts this month. So it'll be interesting to see when and how the actual concrete plans are rolled out.
I know this is probably not the most popular of opinions, given that there's been, I think, 20,000 people have signed that petition. There might be more by the time we go to air. But I'm not overly against it. And I'm not saying that I thought Cromley especially was doing a bad job, but everything has to end. And I don't think this is such a bad thing. And there's nothing wrong with going out on top, especially when you're a commentator, because I can think of commentators in my past, whether they're footy, cricket, or even motor racing, who hung on too long and they sound shit. And so that in some regard, maybe you're doing your legacy, whether that matters to you or not. Maybe you're doing it a great service by pulling stumps before you get asked, or before the public actually ask you to get kicked out.
I think there's an element of that for sure. I don't think this is a decision that's being made because Neil and Mark don't do a good job, because I think they both do a really good job. And I think, and this was a point that that was made, I think Stefan made on the news pod towards the end of last year, when it really started to become really realistic that these guys were going to be out of the gig, is that, their call of one of the best Bathurst 1000s of all time was elite. Like, it was fantastic. So this is not about whether they're doing a good job or a bad job. It's about, is it time for a refresh, which is what you're talking about, right? So I think that they're two separate things. It's not about, like I say, whether Neil's a good commentator or not. That's not even in question. Like, that's, if you think he's not, then you don't understand commentary all that well, because he's absolutely fantastic at it. But you can also turn on the replay of a race from 2012 and it sounds exactly the same as the one now. And I think that's what's driving this. It's about just giving it a freshen up. Now, whether that's the right decision or the wrong decision, everyone will have an opinion on that. Like I say, I sort of sit somewhere in the middle. I'm excited to see what a new era looks like, but to me, it's less about what's happening and more about the way that it's happening. And another point I made last week on the news pod was that that's also not criticism leveled at either side of the scenario either, because there are two sides or multiple sides or to a story, and there's multiple factors that go into this decision. There's not one thing that is driving this change. So, we'll probably never truly know what's happened behind closed doors to sort of lead to the situation we're in right now, where we haven't had that amicable kind of agreement of how to go about the separation. But it's a shame that didn't happen, because that would have been just the nicest outcome, that we either got a really nice farewell tour at the end of last year, or we got just a longer phased exit this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. But again, if they think it's time to go and he doesn't think it's time to go, well, we're not going to get that amicable sort of see as round as being great kind of thing. Very rarely. I mean, there's been a couple of high-profile media people that have done that and then came out straight after it and said, oh, I didn't want to go and I'm not happy about it, but I just took it on the chin sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if this is the way it is, I applaud Supercars in some form that they're willing to do this. I think of the two, and I've made this known before, I think probably Scaife was the more polarising one that should be sort of moved on first. But if they're done together, then so be it. And probably they're going to save themselves a fair quid at the same time, depending on who they get to replace them. So
yeah, and I think the way you summed it up there, where it is a case of if someone doesn't want to stop, but the other side thinks that their time is up, then I think that is, like I say, there'll be a multitude of factors here, and it will be more confusing than anyone will ever know. But ultimately, I think that's basically what it boils down to. That's actually what we're talking about, and that's the situation that the two parties have found themselves in.
Former McLaren development driver, American Ugo Chukwu, has won the Castrol Formula Regional Oceania Trophy in New Zealand, just 3 months on from his split with the F1 team. And with a name like Ugo Chukwu, AVL, he'd be well advised in America to carry his passport when he's back in the US, especially if he hits Minneapolis anytime soon. Ugo Chukwu racked up 4 race wins from 15 races, beating Audi's first F1 junior, Freddie Slater, to the title by 15 points. Ryan Wood claimed the Denny Hulme Memorial Trophy in fine style at Taupo, dominating the 4th race there. Wood went on to secure Rookie of the Year title, mate, and did a fantastic job, it must be said.
Yeah, it was a really interesting CT Frot season. They really dropped the ball on the acronym front compared to when it used to be called TRS, to be honest. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, Ugo sure can drive, but he is quietly spoken and not all that excitable at all. I can tell you, whether he's winning or losing. He makes Oscar Piastri look like an unstoppable ball of energy by comparison.
A crack at it.
He's exceptionally tall. I think his mum's a fashion model or something like that, and he's exceptionally tall as well. So folding himself into an open wheeler must be pretty tough work. But yes, as you mentioned, Ryan Wood, what an amazing job, given he went over there with absolutely no open wheel experience. So, like you could say a paid professional driver should be competitive against these sort of up and comers, and that's true to an extent, but you're just talking about a completely different discipline. So it's a lot like what Brock Feeney did last year, to be honest. I mean, I know obviously Will Brown had fantastic success in, I think it was called CT Frock last year. It's CT Frot now. But when Brock came over for that cameo at the New Zealand Grand Prix, that was amazing because he stuck the thing on pole. And he's another driver who had never raced open wheelers on his way up kind of through the food chain on his way to Supercars. So, yeah, no, I massively impressed with what Ryan achieved over there. And they had some issues with post-qualifying scrutineering for the Grand Prix. But, if they hadn't have had that and he'd started that Grand Prix second, I think he would have been a really big chance to win that race as well because he was pretty fast in that race. So it really is like that's a lot of race miles for someone to have under their belt before the Supercar season. Like that is an advantage, even if the cars are entirely different. Like he's race fit and then he's going to go to the 12-hour and then he's going to roll into SMP. Like I do see that as a really advantageous way to spend your January in terms of preparing for a Supercar season.
Yeah, instead of, like me, spent it drinking. So that's also competitive. One of the weirdest stories to come out over summer was that the MotoGP bosses of Dorna would like to move the MotoGP of Australia from Phillip Island to Albert Park AVL. I don't know whether Melbourne equals Macau, but it'll definitely be interesting. And the last term would be an absolute doozy on a motorbike. You probably wouldn't want to get that too wrong because you could end up in the first 3 rows of the grandstand at some stage there. The Bend have also put up their hand, as you would expect them to, with the South Australian government willing to help them attract MotoGP to the Bend. But will we see MotoGP at Albert Park, and how good would it be?
I don't think so. I mean, this is an interesting thing. You know, this was a report that came from the Age newspaper in Melbourne. They reported about the fact that Dorna wants to move the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix from Phillip Island to Albert Park. It's obviously super unlikely given the amount of tree clearing that would have to go on to bring the circuit up to MotoGP standards. I mean, MotoGP does race on street circuits now. It's a thing that does happen, as wild as it sounds, but there's obviously very different safety standards compared to car racing on street circuits. So, I mean, I really think that it's always tough with these mainstream media reports because it's easy for wires to get crossed sometimes in terms of the information that they're getting. And I'll get onto the other element of this story in a moment about that. But it's probably more likely this is a bit of posturing to try and get the Fox family to spend a bit more money at Phillip Island, which does desperately need some upgrades to keep the race there. But it's still obviously the most suitable place to host a motorcycle Grand Prix in Victoria. And then there's the South Australia factor. I mean, that same report from The Age, you know, clearly had its wires crossed a little bit talking about the possibility of a street race in Adelaide for MotoGP, which, to be honest, makes the Albert Park plan seem completely feasible, you know, like because imagine turn 8 on a motorbike. So, Big Pete Malinauskas quickly clarified that any approach to MotoGP would be via the Bend, which makes infinitely more sense. But, yeah, it's sort of hard to see where it goes from here. That report did say that the Albert Park thing is a complete impasse and that, you know, if they can't sort that out, then it may leave. But I think in all of these cases, there's always a lot of political posturing that goes on when, you know, people are trying to hammer out a new deal over these things. So, but look, I think that, you know, the most likely outcome is that it stays at Phillip Island. The second most likely outcome is that it goes to the Bend. I think it would be, you know, if the Save Albert Park people don't like the Grand Prix being there, imagine if they have to go and bowl over 90% of the trees on the in that part of the parklands to put bigger gravel traps in for MotoGP bikes.
Yeah, not known for their humour at the best of times, that group. Not sure that would be overly appealing to them. At DJR this week, Brodie Kostecki has taken on the number 17 to his Mustang for 2026, handing over the number 38 to Ryland 50 Shades of Grey AVL. I think the biggest thing to come out of this that I think Speed Cafe socials have picked up on is leave the number on the side of the car, please.
Yeah, it looked really good. That number in that style, in that sort of white space on the car looked good. I'm not like a massive, like it doesn't sort of bristle me either way, whether we have numbers on the doors or not, but it certainly did look cool with that sticker on there. But yeah, this plan to give Brodie number 17 kind of emerged late last year, was confirmed at the season launch on the Sunday just gone. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, Davo was the custodian of the 17, and they were never going to take it off him while he was there. So this just presented as the exact right time to do it. And I think it really takes a fair bit of pressure off Ryland as well, because the 17 does carry a lot of significance. And now he doesn't have to sort of carry that weight into his rookie season. So I think it's actually quite a smart move from the team. It sounds silly. We're talking about a number and, you know, it's a tiny bit of vinyl stuck to the windscreen of the car. But, you know, if you're in the 17 at DJR, there is and should be an expectation to perform.
Is that why Will Davidson's not there anymore?
Well, I don't know. Again, it was about the number, but clearly that was a performance-related issue. I mean, there's where the downfall in performance actually sat. That's their questions you can ask. But at the end of the day, that what happened was results-based. It's as simple as that.
With a bit of shit on his liver after the Adelaide Grand Final, nearly said Grand Prix, they were the days. Adelaide Grand Final, Brock Feeney outpaced Supercars teammate Will Brown in a 5-lap shootout aboard a Red Bull Formula One car at the Bend late last year. After Adelaide, Brown's best is quoted at 107.9, with Feeney having run earlier and clocked a 106.6. And all I'm hearing, AVL, is that once again, Will Brown was shit in qualifying.
Yeah. I just cannot applaud Red Bull and the F1 demo program and Triple Eight enough for turning this into a proper shootout. Like, obviously, it was all in good fun, but how good was that video? Like, it was heaps
great.
of fun, and it was great that there was a competitive element to it and that we got an outcome to it. So, like, I just reckon it was amazing the way they rolled that out. I really enjoyed it. And again, it comes back to exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about the stuff in New Zealand before. Like, that is still, as much as it is all just a bunch of fun, that is mighty impressive from Feeney to be quicker than Brown in an open wheeler because, you know, again, like I said, he doesn't have that open wheel background. Will Brown did a lot of open wheel racing early in his career. He was second in the Australian Formula Ford Championship. He was a Australian Formula 4 champion. So he was a successful open wheel driver. And it just shows the sort of form that Brock is in and how naturally gifted he is, particularly in a car with aero. You know, and he seems to go well in the GT cars and that sort of stuff as well. Like, he does seem to just have that real feel for aero. So, that was impressive. Not taking away from Will, but just the way Brock, just the confidence he seems to have at the moment and the way he can drive a car. He's good.
Yeah. Jack Doohan's hopes of rebuilding his career on the 2026 Super Formula grid have fallen apart, leaving the former Alpine Formula One driver facing an uncertain racing future. According to Autosport, Doohan will not line up in Super Formula this season after talks with Toyota-affiliated Kondo Racing collapsed at the final hurdle, despite widespread expectations that the Aussie would secure the seat. Kondo confirmed on Friday that Ukio Sasahara will partner Luke Browning for the 2026 campaign, shutting the door on what appeared to be Doohan's most realistic racing option following his F1 exit. However, Autosport added that negotiations are believed to have stalled in part due to budgetary requirements, with Doohan expecting to bring funding to secure the drive. Some of that funding was probably torn up in 3 days of crashes in testing just in the late last year.
Yeah, look, there's not heaps of money in Super Formula, so I don't find the fact that funding was required as a massive surprise. My guess would be that the Doohan camp was hoping that Toyota would fill that gap. But to be honest, I don't know the ins and outs of it. But whatever it is, this does feel like a big dent in Jack's F1 aspirations. As you know, if he'd had a sort of Toyota/Haas deal, that would have kept him in the game to some extent. Now he'll have to look elsewhere, you know, whether it's sports cars or whatever it is. So, it's a shame for Jack that they couldn't get this deal across the line, because I think it just would have kept him. You know, we talk about it all the time. It's harder to get out than get in sometimes in Formula One, and it would have sort of kept him in the game a little bit, but clearly wasn't to be.
Lewis Hamilton will start the 2026 Formula One season with a new race engineer after Ferrari confirmed Riccardo Adami has moved to a role within the team's driver academy, otherwise known as a massive demotion. The decision comes as part of a surprise given the chemistry between the two. Who can forget the way they ended 2025? Have a listen to this again just for old time's sake.
I'll always fight for you guys. Always. That's it. You get that message. It's the one time you don't reply.
You got it, yeah, we were talking. Thank you very much. It was awesome working with you. And grazie mille.
And in further Lewis Hamilton news, there's a little bit of a rumour around this afternoon, AVL, that he's hooked up with Kim Kardashian. We know how that ends for athletes who hook up with a Kardashian. That's not going to end well either.
Well, I hadn't seen that, so you've I've got no strong thoughts on that one. But I mean, let's talk on track. Just what a huge season this is for Lewis that we're heading into this year. Like, this is where we should get the proper answer as to whether he has just lost that edge and is unable to be an F1 powerhouse driver anymore, or whether it was a case of those ground effect cars just not kind of suiting his driving style. So, regardless of where the Ferrari stacks up, he's obviously got a very kind of known benchmark in Charles Leclerc at that team, and it's just... This is a massive season for Lewis Hamilton.
Yep. Yeah, it should be interesting. Williams did not run its new 2026 Formula One car at the private shakedown test in Barcelona, opting instead to focus on alternative preparation ahead of its first official running in Bahrain, with rumours it has failed mandatory crash testing. It adds to the further woes of the suggestion that the car is overweight. And you really have to feel sorry for the team AVL, who only found out about the new rule set for 2026 in late December last year.
Yeah, there's no way to slice this.
Excuse I can come up with.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way to slice this than as a very much less than ideal start to the new season. Like, lost running is lost running, and you wouldn't forfeit that unless there was a proper delay with the car. So troubling signs for Williams. Clearly a struggle there because, I mean, that shakedown was 5 days. You only got 3 days of it. So you could at least try and get a day in or something, but they just gave up before it even started. So that's a sign that things are definitely not going well.
Yeah. With the Supercars season opener rapidly approaching, biggest pressure will be on the band Jet, who will play at the event, trying to replicate the great Timmy Trumpet, who kicked things off at last year's event. Let's not forget that the performance by Timmy Trumpet led to a record sale of bottles of water at the track as fans really got into his performance, grinding their teeth and smashing Chupa Chups. We also might need to explain AVL to Rylan Gray who Jet are, given he was an embryo when they had their chart-topping album Get Born.
Yeah, that's actually quite depressing for all of us here.
Great band, by the way. WAU are set to be renamed, obviously, with a little bit of a whisper running around that they will be called Wu-Tang, Walkinshaw United Toyota Australia Next Gen Racing. And I can't wait, for one, to see the clan out there in action, AVL.
Yeah, it's treading dangerous areas, that nickname already, but anyway. All right.
Let's go Kiwis and Aussies overseas. In IndyCar, Team Penske has revealed the strategist for its 3 NTT IndyCar Series drivers in 26. It's one big surprise. Tim Cindric is back. Cindric was released, i.e. sacked, from Team Penske as IndyCar team president last May, along with managing director Ron Rzuski and general manager Kyle Moyer, following the penalties occurred in qualifying for the Indianapolis 500. But proving that Mr. Penske is a very forgiving man, Cindric is returning to the team in 2026 as the strategist for the number 3 Chevrolet driven by Scott McLaughlin. What do you make of that?
Yeah, surprising. Definitely surprising. Probably a nice, handy little win for Scotty Mac, to be honest, because I don't think it's ever kind of in doubt as to whether Tim knows what he's doing when it comes to running a race team and running a race. But yes, it's certainly surprising that when you've kind of found yourself in the position that he did last year, to be back in the team, even in a very different role.
Yeah. IndyCar and United States President Donald Trump is set to make his pitch for an IndyCar race around the streets of Washington, D.C. a reality. The Carry Your Papers 250 is set to become the 18th race on the IndyCar series schedule for August 21-23 and will be free to attend. The IndyCar race will be a centrepiece of the United States 250th anniversary celebrations, where white people arrive by boat and claim the lands, with cars to race around the National Mall and other iconic landmarks like the Epstein Files. On Friday, President Trump signed an executive order to allow the race to happen, as well as an official presidential pardon for himself for anything that might happen in the near future.
If you have not seen the video that he put out about when they were trying to get this off the ground, mate, do yourself a favour and go and watch it, because it is remarkable.
What a mess that joint is.
They are going to put up something that's really amazing. And this is going to have a lot of people. I won't even say how many people, because I think it can set a record for racing. And I love the race. I don't have a lot of time to watch it. But they've been coming here for years. And everybody wanted it. You know, every senator wants it, every Congress, everybody wants it, but they don't get things done. Trump gets things done.
Now, before we go to a break, AVL, I chatted to Bruce Morrison, who's from Motoractive, who obviously are the people behind Mobile and Maguire's in Australia, and sponsor of the best race of the year in the Bathurst 12 Hour, and we chatted all things 12 Hour and sponsorship in motorsport. So here's my chat with him before we head to a break. Our next guest, or our first guest for 2026 on the Full Credit to the Noise, is a man who, well, he's the boss of some of the biggest brands in Australian automotive parts and accessories. Let's get him on the line. Bruce Morrison, as I say hello to you, can we talk by saying what products do you want to plug here on this very ordinary podcast?
Oh, mate, with an opportunity like that means I've got to plug them pretty much all, right? So, as you know, I own a business called Motoractive, and we have been the original long-term player in Australia for Maguire's car care products. We started that in 1990. More recent times, we handle Mobile One in the retail space, so we sell to all the retailers on that side of the business for ExxonMobil and Ampol.
Yep.
We handle Elf lubricants as well out of Europe, which is a Total brand. We have our own brand of paint called Colour Spec that we sell through Supercheap Auto, able to mix the paint to the colour code on the car rather than just guessing. And then we have a brand called Blue Chem, which are these days additives that are from fuel injection cleaners to oil additives for older cars. So enough to keep me busy, mate.
Mate, I was thinking about before you came on all the things that you and I might have in common, and at first you'd probably think not much, but you work for an oil company and I like beauty pageants, so we're both fans of Venezuela at the moment. What about with the Maguire side of things? I mean, it's the absolute premium car care products on the market, Bruce. Let's not muck around. But there's a good crossover with motorsport. You guys have got a history with sponsoring different things. Have you thought about doing some F1-inspired products for the interior of your cars? Because I was thinking, what would be better than a David Croft knob polishing rag? Or because there's nothing better than a good clean knob in your car. Or we can go outside of the car. And what about Ted Kravitz rim polish? 'Cause no one knows more about rimming than Ted Kravitz at the moment. Mate, serious. Let's get serious. But you sponsor the best race of the year and you've had a long history with the best race of the year in the 12-hour. So talk to us about that. Where does this all come about, and some of the cars you've sponsored in that time?
Well, thanks for that commentary, mate. You've given me some great ideas there. I'm not sure how many of those are commercially viable. We might just stick to selling some of those great ideas you've had, just selling them online, maybe under a different name. I get into enough trouble
the dark
all
web.
on my own without your great ideas. Yeah, maybe the dark web. I remember I did an ad campaign. It was 12, 14 years ago now, before there was an online world that we live in, and we introduced them for Maguire's this Canuba wax. That was a wash and wax product, right?
Yep.
And I always thought about Canuba being Brazilian and all that kind of stuff. And I did a whole campaign on it that was titled "Brazilian Wax Isn't Just for Chicks." And
I like it.
we did quite the racy ad campaign. And to this day, it's been our biggest blockbuster product. So we have stepped out on the edge. We don't do it so much anymore, mate, because it's a very visible world these days. And,
very true.
And people have lost their sense of humour. So getting back to the 12-hour, well, look, it's been a great race for us. We started back in 13 when we represented Liquid Moly here, and we took that brand and Maguire's to the 12-hour. So we've been on the race one way or another all that time. And it's been wonderful to watch it grow, because when we first started that, it was predates, of course, Supercars and James O'Brien then. And it was a pretty modest race. It was a 12-hour, bit of GT, no internationals at all, really. It was the GT cars that were in Australia. It was very early days. We had no TV. We had some highlights, I think, on SBS. Then a couple of years later, they tried a bit of streaming when streaming was very new and clunky. So we had to start that association right back in the day when you just had to believe something could get pretty big. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. I think that was always my view. If you're going to sponsor something, you're trying to help it go somewhere. We very rarely get on things late. We try and get into events early, make a contribution, work with some really good people, and help an event evolve. And that's where it has. So we're very proud, I guess, of that early association. And, we had some bumpy stuff over COVID, and we came back just last year as title sponsors with the event. Yep. It was a very exciting day for me with Maguire's on that. To be able to do that after all those years, we were a minor sponsor for Maguire's the whole time. But I guess getting back as a title sponsor is where we love to be. and it's been great. I guess we've timed it that we've come back on the race and look at it this year. Right, we were on it last year, and it was really good. But you could have the car count, and look how much it's changed. We just 1 full year of us sponsoring the event. How much better it is, mate.
It's very true. Nothing wrong with taking all the credit.
No, we'll take all the credit, exactly.
Tell me this, and I don't think motorsport fans might grasp the entirety of it all, but what does a sponsor get out of putting money into either one, a team, or two, a race? Because obviously the obvious thing is your name's up in lights and it's it's in the background and everything else, and it's referred to as the Maguire's 12 hour and things like that. But is there more to it than that to get people involved in sponsorship in motorsport?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, motorsport, of all the things you might sponsor, is the trickiest because you do have drivers, then you'll have a team, then you'll have events. And you certainly can't do them all.
Yes.
And you've got to pick what you might do. And the fundamental mistake most businesses make about sponsorship is thinking it's the cost of the sponsorship is where it kind of ends. You put X amount of money into something and the job is done, when the reality is probably about half of the cost. It's the cost of activation and all the things to leverage that association that also gets expensive and hard to do. And I think also you've got to have some patience, right? You can't sponsor anything in motorsport, probably anything in sport for that matter, but anything in motorsport, and think that a year or two of it will change your world. And most people don't have the patience for it. You've got to get in and help it, build it, and expect it to take some years. So, it's quite tricky, and probably of all the sport categories, motorsport's one of the where people waste more money than probably any other sport. Because you can put stickers on cars, you can put stickers on helmets, you can put stickers and now digital stuff around the race circuit, and what you've got is huge numbers of logos circulating. And look at something like NASCAR, and you see the sides of the cars. They're all the NASCAR official series sponsors. There's like 50 little stickers on the side of the car, like it makes a difference. So you can always see your own logo, and then can anybody else see your logo in the end? And then why does it matter? If you see a logo, it doesn't make anybody want to go out and just buy your product because they saw your logo. So you have to do a whole lot of other stuff behind the scenes, adjuncting to whatever you're sponsoring to get the value out of it and leverage the association. And it's far trickier than most people think.
I think we've probably seen the 12-hour lull a little over maybe the 3 or 4 years prior to Valentino Rossi arriving, and then it seems to have kicked along off the back of Valentino in some regard. How important is someone like that to an event like this?
Yeah, people love celebrities, right? You just have to have them. I remember what year it was, obviously pre-COVID, but we had, the first time when we had no TV, we was getting some highlights. It was on SBS. And Eric Banner was driving.
Lee Magoonie.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember it got some coverage on 9 on mainstream purely because Eric Banner was in the race.
Yep.
So they came up, Erin Mullen, I think, did it from memory on 9, and she came up really just to get interviews with Eric Banner. He didn't really want to do the interviews because when you're an actor driving a race car, it takes a lot of concentration, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because you're not really a race car driver, and but he was very competitive in it. But just that alone, the coverage and talking about Eric Banner primarily, and then suddenly realizing it's a pretty good race and all this stuff going for it. That one piece of coverage one year got us on TV. I think it was 7 Network the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Not the whole race, but at least extended good live coverage. So it does, it both pulls a crowd, celebrity, so that you get more punters to go, but it also does other things. It gives away more visibility to a race that may have otherwise not been attractive to a broader audience.
If we keep Valentino coming, do you reckon there's a chance we could maybe get Marc Marquez in another car? Because that'd be a headline act. But if not, what a chance maybe one day we get Max Verstappen over.
I think he'd be pretty good, mate. I think Max probably draws a bit of a crowd. Like, imagine how many people would just go to the event, just buy tickets to get to brush or get an autograph from Max Verstappen and have him just say you were there when he drove around Mount Panorama. I just imagine people would do it. So, yeah, it does. I mean, look at the celebrity in motorsport, particularly Formula One these days. I mean, there's a lot of glamour to it, but it's funny once someone's famous, particularly when you look at it was from Netflix that got all those drivers and team bosses the fame that they've currently got, where they're almost a household name, that it makes a huge difference. So, and I think an international race like this with the Maguire's Bathurst 12 hour, just so you got the full title in there.
Nice.
And that, only an international race will bring true celebrity with it. Because internationals want to go to a race that, yes, it's got the local component to it, but it needs to be broadcast internationally. You need to have the international makes, models, the type of cars that an international driver would like to drive and know about. And so GT at Bathurst gives us a great chance of continuing on that celebrity wave of people that are cool, that people would love to see driving something different.
As anyone who follows this show knows, it's my favourite race of the year. I was on Sydney Radio earlier this week or last week talking about the race, and they asked me what was the difference between the 1000 and the 12 hour, and I basically said at the moment the only difference is instead of burying beer up there, we bury Chardonnay up the top of the mountain these days. But mate, I'm really looking forward to it. I cannot wait. It's the best race of the year. If you haven't seen it, get up there and have a look at these cars go across the top of the mountain. If you've seen the V8s, these are a little bit different. They're a lot faster, I'll tell you. And it's an absolute spectacle, especially at the very early morning start with the sparks and the brake discs and everything else. It's just an absolute fantastic event. Like I said, I can't wait, mate. It's nearly Christmas again, and it's just the best time of the year.
It is wonderful. And look, it's been great this year, a couple of weeks later than normal, and I think it's been terrific. It gives you a little bit more runway to build up into the race. And, as you said, the top of the mountain with the downforce on the GT cars is quite unbelievable. It defies gravity when you're watching going, how do they stay stuck until they don't stay stuck?
Yeah.
But, of course, this year too, so we've always been very Euro with a little bit of Japanese in there when they had the Nissan in there. But, to have this year where we've got the big, 5 or 6 blockbuster European brands, and we've now got Ford Racing and Chevrolet in there, it's almost, it's got everything this year. Like it really, whatever you're following as a mate, it's there, isn't it? Like it's the first time we've ever been able to do that. And I think it will bring a bit of an expanded fan base. But it's got that, Ford versus Ferrari thing, and people love all that sort of stuff, right? So I think if you want to see how they look and sound, they all stick to the road very similarly, but they're very different how they make their lap times, as you well know, and they all sound different. And that's what makes that Bathurst race so different, is the cars and the sounds of the cars are so different. It's just a completely different experience. Apart from the Chardonnay instead of I described it as we were a bit more Peroni than VB. That's how I described it. Same sort of thing, mate. If you're tipping your Chardonnay across the top, it's a wonderful experience. And that's part of the reason you go, right? You can watch it on TV and it will be awesome. The telecast is fantastic these days, particularly at night. But to get the feeling, I do the start, like we do the pre-grid walk, and then the start, then you go up the top. It's quite the experience, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant, mate. Like I said, I cannot wait. About a week to go, I start getting antsy and just want to get up there. I'll be the first bloke through the gate on Friday morning. Actually, I'll be up there Thursday night. But, mate, really appreciate you coming on the show. I look forward to the event as per usual. And thank you very much from Motorsport fans for supporting such a cracking event.
Thank you, mate. Obviously, I'll see you up there.
You will see me up there, mate.
Full credit to the noise. If you're out there forklifting, bobcatting, jackhammering, backhoeing, trenching, digging, drilling and persuading, you want to know that if anyone is thieving your stuff, that your insurance company will be timely with approving. So get on to Truck Assist, the insurance to keep on earning, with cover for the machines you're hauling and your work truck too. Go to truckassist.com.au, then get back to all that persuading. Limits and exclusions apply. Consider the PDS and TMD on the Truck Assist website.
Yes, welcome back. And for the last 2 years, AVL, we've done a $2 stock market at the very beginning of each season. So we'll do it again. I'm going to give you two names, and I want you to tell me if you're an investor and both these stocks are worth $2 on the stock market. You just have to tell me who you're throwing your cash at to make profit by December this year. All right?
Gotcha. Yep.
So let's start with the dead obvious one. Will Brown or Brock Feeney? Both are $2 right now.
Yeah, I can't go past Brock Feeney. Nothing against Will at all, but I just think Brock showed last year that he's an exceptional talent, like proper potential to become unstoppable, particularly at that team. So I think he's the sort of personality that will be fired up after how last year played out, and he's still young enough to keep getting better and better. So he's going to be really hard to beat this year, even from the other side of the Triple Eight garage.
Yeah, I think this might be one of the rare cases where both these blokes will gain in value by December, but I'll take Brock Feeney as well. I think it's, like you said, and there just might be a little bit of shit on his liver that would see him push even harder than last year. All right, speaking of the new team to Ford, what about this one? $2, Walkinshaw TWG Racing. Let's just throw that out there, the Wu-Tang Clan. Or the Triple Eight Red Bull Ford Ampol Racing Australia, or whatever they're going to be called.
I'll go with Triple Eight here. I like their manufacturer switch has a lot more predictability to it than what Walkinshaw's is facing. We don't really know where the Toyota stacks up yet, but what we can pretty safely take to the bank is that the Triple Eight cars will be at the front. So it's just hard to. It's just the safest bet.
Yeah, I think that's the obvious bet, isn't it? Saying that, a lot of scope for an increase in value in $2 for Walkinshaws, depending on the job they do early. Oh, this one we did last year, and we both went the second choice, but Oscar Piastri versus Lando Norris.
Oh, this is a really, really hard one. My concern is that winning the title will free Lando up a little bit, and he'll actually get better for it and less mistake prone because of it, like to have that pressure taken off. So that's where I'm kind of like, At the same time, Oscar just always learns and improves. Like that's just his thing. It's what he always does. So I'm going to go. Actually, I'm going to go with Oscar because if we're talking about stock, the appreciation of stock, like I guess anything other than another title for Lando is going backwards, right? Like he's a reigning champion. So we don't know where the McLaren stacks up, but I think Oscar's got a bit more room to move, even if the McLaren isn't the fastest car, if he can get on top of Lando. So whereas, really, Lando, anything but another title is a step backwards compared to 2025.
Yeah.
So I'll go Oscar.
I'm kind of on the same thought process there. I think I'm going to go Oscar as well. I think if they're paying $2 right now, the room for improvement is with Oscar, as long as he's learnt from whatever the hell happened in the back half of that season. Yeah, I think he will, and he may well do a Brock Feeney here and just coming out with gritted teeth and you know.
Yeah, let's say my only concern is that Lando's might actually unlock his natural ability a bit by getting out of his head because he's kind of done the thing that every young F1 aspirant sets out to do, which is to become world champion. So, but yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable with going Oscar there.
All right, this one will be open for debate and might be worth talking about on the socials. Cam Waters v. Brody Kostecki.
Yep, that's another pretty tough one. I think they both should be expected to go very deep into finals this season. Yep. I think I'll go with Brody just because, there's obviously this massive rebuild going on and there's this massive expectation that they really should start making good on things there. But it could go either way. Either of these guys could win the championship this year. So, and I think they both should be genuine title contenders. So I'm saying Brody, but with no great confidence.
I don't know whether I only just caught the socials of the number 17 handover. Brody looks fit, man.
Yep.
Like he looks
lean,
definitely.
Yep. No, I think he's been putting the work in the off season. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And for that alone, I'm going to go Brody. Here's another interesting one. Rylan Gray v. Zach Bates.
Jesus Christ, this is hard.
Yeah.
I
I've got
think
a solid view on this.
I think it's a lower pressure intro to the category for Zach, and he's got that little bit more main game experience. And there's some kind of known quantities like speed at Albert Park, speed at Tasmania. And we know that if you put Zach in a quick car, he can actually kind of mix it near the front in the main game. So I think I'm going to go with Zach because I do think there's going to be some challenges for Rylan, only because he's going into the team that he's going into. And there's so much pressure and so much expectation. And he's got Brody Kostecki on the other side of the garage, which will be a useful kind of learning, like a useful teammate to have in terms of learning, but a tough teammate to pit yourself against this early in your career.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think, like you say, Zach will be there, and I just think with the lower expectation, lower pressure, less spotlight, I think he might sort of be worth more by the end of the day, by the end of the year. What I think with Rylan is he might even have to take a step back before he makes 2 steps forward. And if Ford and DJ are patient, I'm sure he will pay dividends.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I just think it might be a little bit of a learning curve, and that's to be expected in this formula. Ferrari F1 v Red Bull F1, $2 each.
I guess again this one comes down to like what is an appreciation in value and what isn't for these teams, because Red Bull's been in the F1 title fight every year since like 2021, right? So if it doesn't contend for the title this year, it's gone backwards. And even despite a pretty positive start in Barcelona, this in-house engine program is a massive call for Red Bull. So I think expectations do have to be tempered a little bit there. But if we're talking about going up or down, if Max Verstappen doesn't fight for the title, then kind of like then they have taken a step backwards. If Ferrari does anything even reasonably half good at any point during the season, it'll feel like a forward step. So I'm going to go with Ferrari on this one.
I'm going to go with Red Bull on the fact that I don't think Ferrari will take a forward step. They'll trip over themselves or something. They're just the team that can do that.
It's not. That's entirely feasible as well.
I threw this next one in. I actually changed it from what it did say to after we spoke late last week. Aston Martin v Alpine.
Yeah, that's a beauty, actually. Like that newie Aston Martin is certainly an aggressive design compared to what we've seen from the other teams.
Do you reckon everything we've seen is what it's meant to be? Because I reckon Adrian Newey's got it in him to stick something on a car so people go, oh, if Newey's done that, we better look at this.
Yeah.
And maybe throw a whole heap of development into something that's actually not going to be on there.
I really don't know. I firstly have some reservations about that Honda engine package. I think that could be an issue for Aston Martin. And I also think that there should be a lot of expectation on Aston Martin for this year, because this is an Adrian Newey car. Fernando Alonso was apparently the greatest driver that ever set his backside in a Formula 1 car ever.
Put it away.
So there should be big expectations for that team, and anything other than being a challenger, like a brand new rule set with Adrian Newey in your corner, a works engine deal, a championship winning driver, they really should be right at the front. And if they're not, I think it's going to feel like that they've missed the mark. So, and then you contrast that with Alpine. They could not be coming from a lower base if they tried. They are that is the basket case team of F1. So I'm going to go with them because they looked all right in the shakedown with that Mercedes engine. And I do feel there's actually hope for a solid season, particularly if the Mercedes is the engine to have. And then you've got a team like one of their direct competitors within the Mercedes camp in Williams is suddenly a bit off the boil there, particularly at the start of the year. There's actually an opportunity for Alpine to kind of look like a semi-competent race team this year. So I'm going to go with them.
Didn't Fernando Alonso and Honda end badly last time they were combined together? I got a feeling. I'm wondering whether they'll they might have to tell him maybe just go easy on the radio this year if we're having engine issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything Mercedes right now seems to be quite strong. And like you say, from the low base that Alpine started, I think maybe that might be the go there, is to take Alpine and get on board. Here's another one. Will Power, who's starting going to a new team with Andretti, and Scott McLaughlin. If they're both $2 right now, who's going to be worth more at the end of the year?
another tough one. A willpower with a point to prove is a pretty good willpower generally, but I'm guessing Scotty Mack will want a bit of a bounce back too after kind of a tough season last year. So I'll go with Will just based on how fired up he should be to make a point, but not with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think I'm actually going to stay with Will here only because I like when Will Power's angry. I think he gets great results when he's angry, and I reckon he will have a little point to prove here with the Penske team giving him the heave-ho. Saying that, Scotty's got a new team strategist, so that'll be interesting for him. But yeah, I'll go Will Power marginally. This is an interesting one. Mark Scaife v. Neil Crompton.
I mean, both have a lot of interest in the sport outside of the commentary box, so I think both will be fine in terms of their standing and value. But if we're talking about TV minutes, and that's what we're judging it on, I feel like Mark is working with Supercars and Fox Sports on how a new role looks for him, and I don't sort of feel there's a huge danger that he disappears from the broadcast entirely. But I think there is the chance that happens with Neil. So I don't know exactly who I'm saying there, but that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to say Neil Crompton because I think absence will make the heart grow even fonder.
Well, Neil. Yes, that's a great point. You know, like and again, like you say, like sort of that idea of being unfairly axed is it could be a good thing.
Yeah, so I think with that in mind, I think Neil might be the better investment there on that stock market. Finally, given these two blokes have been rumoured to both be in the commentary box in 2026, Mark Winterbottom v. James Courtney.
So we're talking comms box performance, or are we talking on-track performance here? Because they'll both be in race cars as well.
No, comms box.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, in terms of the TV, I think we're just going to see more of JC than we are of Frosty. So I think that's what I would imagine. That's how I envisage it playing out. Again, we're just so short of details about what the series is actually planning to do with all these guys. But I'll say JC just because I think he's actually going to really excel in the TV stuff. So, but I think Mark, like Frosty, has the potential to bring a lot to the coverage as well. But I think this is going to be a domain that JC shines in.
Yeah, for that alone, I'm going to go with you and just say JC will be worth more. Like you say, maybe in the driving stakes, maybe it'll be flipped. But just for this, I'll take James Courtney. All right, big year ahead. Very interesting indeed. And we might revisit these at the end of the year to see who's made money on the $2 stock market. We'll go to a break and we'll come back with Rear of Grid, including Credit or Shred It.
Full credit to the noise.
Winter could spell bad news for your vehicle's battery. Here are 3 maintenance tips from the battery gurus at R&J Batteries. 1. Avoid frequent short trips to keep your battery at a healthy state of charge. 2. Keep the battery terminals clean and corrosion-free. 3. Avoid running your accessories with the engine off for too long. If your battery is 3 years or older, it might be time to get it tested for free at your local R&J Batteries. R&J Batteries. Power like nothing else.
Yes, welcome back to Rear of Grid for the first time in 2026. Before we go into Credit or Shred It, AVL, this big news that people are messaging me about. What is it about Full Credit to the Noise membership?
Yes, the Full Credit to the Noise membership. We're ramping things up with Full Credit to the Noise this year, so you definitely want to subscribe, which you can do at fcttn.com. Unlock all the benefits of being a member, automatic access to our monthly giveaways. The Discord channel is a whole bunch of fun. You really want to make sure you're part of that. Vodcast, other exclusive content, but the big ticket item former is that something big and exciting is dropping this Friday at 6 p.m. It's our first limited edition merch drop, which is themed around the Australian Grand Prix, and we have swung for the fences on the designs. Let me tell you, they are seriously cool. I'm looking forward to this going out. I'm looking forward to get my hands on it as well. So keep an eye out on the socials for that later at the end of this week on Friday evening. And sign up as a full creditor because it's just a fun thing to do.
Yes. And I think they're getting tickets to the live show. Oh, no. What happened there?
We'll get there.
Time catches up with you pretty quickly, doesn't it, over the summer break? All right, let's do some credit or shred it. I'm going to make 6 statements. You just tell me whether you agree or disagree with a credit or a shred it, and we'll revisit in the end if there's any huge disparities. Number 1, 2026 is Lewis Hamilton's swan song in Formula One.
I'll go with shred it.
I'll go credit. Number 2, staying at Ferrari. They will not win a race in 26.
Shred it.
Credit. Thomas Randall will win a race in 2026.
Credit. I'm being really optimistic today.
Shred it. Number 4, the pushback from fans will see Neil Crompton return to the commentary box.
If you're talking about a full-time return, then shred it.
Yeah, I'll say shred it as well if that's the qualifier. Number 5, Ryan Wood will be the top Toyota runner in 2026.
Ooh. Credit.
I'll say credit as well. Number 6, F1 is getting too technical for traditional fans to enjoy.
Shred it.
I'm going to say credit. All right, Lewis Hamilton's swan song.
I just think
no,
you've got to give.
be.
I think you've just got to give the benefit of the doubt to someone as successful as Lewis. That with regulations that might suit him better, he can turn it around. So, but as I highlighted before,
I'll say
it's a critical
I'll
year.
say if he goes well, wins a couple of races, it'll be a good way for him to go out on his own terms. And if he doesn't, then he'll go out anyway. So I'll say no, he will not be in Formula One in 2027. Ferrari won't win a race in 26. They won a sprint race last year, but that was about as close as they got to winning a race all year. What do you say?
I've gone shred it only because there's absolutely no way of knowing. Like Ferrari right now will still have no idea exactly where they stand. So I think it's just to say they won't is too big a statement to make right now because nobody knows. Not one team knows exactly where they stand. They'll all have their idea, but until we at least get to Bahrain, and even there, it's going to... We might not know till halfway through the season where everyone stands, to be honest.
Yep. I'll say... I think I said credit, but I feel like this year might be dominated by one team, and there would be a few races outside of that team for other teams to win. So I'm going to say won't win a race. I'll say credit. Randall will win a race in 26.
Yeah, I've gone credit on that. I think he needs to. I think this has to be the year. Like it can't.
It has to.
I don't think he can go another year without doing it. So I'll back him in to get that job done at some point.
Yeah, unfortunately, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say shred it. The pushback will see Crompton back in the commentary box on a full-time basis. I think they're so far down the track it won't happen.
Yeah, we aren't in a save Larko situation here. Unfortunately, for anybody who does want Neil to stay, I think the damage is done, and to a large extent, the decisions have been made. I wouldn't be shocked if he does take some sort of that limited deal eventually, but I can't at this point see a permanent backflip from Supercars.
Ryan Wood will be the top Toyota runner in 26. I say credit.
Yeah, I think this could well be the case. Why not? Like, I think it'll be close between him and Chaz, but I don't see any reason why it can't be Ryan. Who's no?
I think the summer too, like you said. I think those extra Ks will sort of suit him as well. So that could well be a good feeder into the year. And finally, F1 is getting too technical for traditional fans. I say credit. I know you shouldn't gauge everything off social media, but there is a lot of people saying they've lost me with this energy recovery and all these other things that you're having to get your mind around when it's not. It's a long way removed now from just pure racing.
Yeah, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be highly technical. Like that's the point of it. That's what's underpinned Formula One for its entire existence. So I don't see that as. I mean, we've got to wait. We need to wait until we see race weekends with these new rules and how they unfold and how easy it is to follow. But part of it's meant to be, a slight sort of simplification on the powertrain front and that sort of stuff. So I kind of don't buy the too technical thing because it is meant to be the pinnacle of technical innovation. That's why it's always existed and why manufacturers come and play in it and all that sort of stuff. So, I don't see it that way.
All right, the whisper of the week, and I'll just put it out there because it was told to me. Matt Campbell to Ford question mark. End of this year, maybe to do their hypercar program is what I was suggested to me. So
makes sense.
Take that how you want. Fan letter of the week, and it comes from Chaz.Chas on Instagram. He says, "Hey, Former, congrats on not getting arrested over the long summer break." Well, that's how much you know, Chaz. Possible to get some clarification on the pod on how the pits will work for SCT and the third BJR car, if not already on the rundown. Do you want to break that down? Because I think it's a pretty open and shut case now.
Yes, no, they literally rewrote the rules around the situation. So the third BJR car, which is likely to be Macaulay Jones, and the SCT car will be grouped as a team, just like they were last year, to be honest, except AAA to be running the SCT car instead of it being part of that sort of a quartet of BJR cars. But they will be grouped as a team for the sake of teams' championship points, and the rules point that out.
Yep.
And as for their pit lane position with the live pit lane or live pit order, those two cars will be grouped with the lower performing of the primary teams they are associated with. Because, and there's a little bit of nuance here, 888 is not actually a 3-car team. BJR is a 3-car team. That is an entity that owns 3 TRCs. SCT is actually a 1-car team that is operated by 888 or has the technical support of 888. So what that means is the way the rules are written is that, you know, the third car is linked to BJR, the other car is linked to 888, even if it's not officially a 888 entry. So that they will be grouped with the lower performing of those teams, which, nothing against BJR, but history would suggest that would be BJR. So unless the Toyota is an absolute rocket ship. So the likeliest outcome is that for the most part of the season, we'll see the 2 primary BJR cars, the third BJR car, and the 888 run SCT car all grouped together in the live pit lane order.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Well, mate, yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'll wing it and just see the first round, then I get my mind around it when I just see it in front of me for the first time. But for now, that'll about do us for this episode of Full Credit to the Noise. Don't forget, you can find the show on all the socials at FCTTN Podcast, and you can read AVL's excellent work over at speedcafe.com, where they do break all the big motorsport news first. AVL's going to be broadcasting from the sun next week because it's going to be a little bit cooler than where he is right now, which is good. Yes. But until next time, I've been Former Legend, he's been AVL, this has been Full Credit to the Noise, and we'll see you at the top of McPhillamy when we bury some beer. See you there.
See you there.
Full Credit to the Noise.